We live life on cruise control and we get what we get. There used to be a line, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
Sure.
That's a dumb line. Like, I used to use that on my kids. Like, if they didn't like their dinner at whatever, they didn't like the chicken nuggets when they were little. We're a little older now. We don't have to live on chicken nuggets. We get to make some, and chicken nuggets are still pretty good, but we get to make some decisions about what we want and how we're going to make that happen. But you have to take the time again to have the clarity to figure it out.
Which is only one component. It's the first component. We got to figure it out, but then we got to take action on it. Because unless we take action, it's just a dream. It's no different with any of our other goals, right? And my vision board or anything else that I have. If I don't take the action to move towards those things, they're just a dream.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Grit Meets Growth podcast, where we bring you inspiration and insights focused on getting uncomfortable, making things happen, and creating a magnetic life. If you enjoy the messages you're hearing here, please leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes of the podcast. With that, let's get after it. How do you want to start it off? Episode.
Doesn't even matter what episode it is anymore, John. It's been going on for 2 years, dude.
We're like really close to the 2-year anniversary of this thing.
Yeah, what is this, 51? We got one more, and we're at the official 2-year mark.
Yeah, it is. I think it is 51.
Can't wait till we hit episode 55. Then we can play some Sammy Hagar.
Is that what you listen to on the bike, Hagar?
No, I listen to everything. I'm all over the place.
I had a moment coming off of our last episode where you talked about how you don't listen to headphones in the gym. You just listen to whatever the house music is. And I left the headphones at home this last week and just went headphoneless. I felt naked.
How was it?
It was good. It was good.
Better, worse, like different? How?
I'm still deciding, but I caught myself. I didn't fiddle with my phone. I got in and I was more focused. And there was good house music. Like, it wasn't like I needed the headphones or the extra stuff to pay attention to. Definitely a higher level of focus in the workout. So it was interesting.
Well, I think it allows you to really listen to your own thoughts a little bit more.
100%. It's easy. Like, and I've done that running too, where if you have music going, you can't listen to your own thoughts. That moment where you really start to think about things and you really start to dig in on what's going on in life and kind of what's going on, like really thinking through what you have on your plate, what's in front of you, challenges, things you're excited about. You don't get to do that if you have the headphones on. Like,
now, listen, I'm not suggesting that we abandon the headphones altogether or we abandon music altogether. That's not what my suggestion is, right? My gym workouts are the way they are for a reason. But on the same other side of that, I guess, is the fact of, like, I had a Peloton ride this morning that for me was all about the music. Like, it was a rock ride. It was all about the music, the beat of the music. And that's really what drove me through that workout. So, there's room for it all. I guess my only suggestion is, like, play around with it. It doesn't have to be a forever thing for you. It doesn't have to be a forever thing for me. I'm actually, since I said that on the last episode, I'm contemplating actually, because I got some new headphones that really work well. I'm contemplating wearing some headphones into the gym.
But I think that applies to everything in life. Don't get into so much of a rut that you quit playing around with what works for you. Like, we get really stuck in, well, this is just how I've always done it, and I don't mess with it because it's perfect. Well, good luck. That's not true. you probably should mess with it a little bit and explore things a little bit more and see what works for you. And what works for you today might not work for you in 2 months. I mean, you got to play with it.
I mean, I know people that listen to a podcast and while they're working out. Like, I don't know that that's my jam, but if that's what works for you, like, that's what works for you. Like, that's the beauty of it, right? It's finding what works best for us. You know, where each of us are individuals. What works for you isn't going to work for me. Like, we're on our own journeys here, right? And that's where, you know, we're bringing suggestions on things that work for us, and the topics that we're talking about are things that work for us. But how can you apply those same type of principles to your journey?
I want to hit on something. We spend a lot of time talking about a lot of different topics on here, and one of them that we talk a lot about is grit and mindset, and there's a lot of conversations to be had about that. You and I got into an interesting conversation a little bit earlier about having fun and mixing fun into the equation. And I think the amount of conversations I've had lately about just hustle and grind, just buckle up, get it done, heads down, get after it. Like, all of those things are really good for a season, but hustle and grind is not a long-term strategy. I think you have to make time, like we were talking about earlier, for fun. And even as we're coming up now on summertime and everything spring and summer holds in store, and fun things that we get to do in the summer that we can't do in the middle of the winter when it's cold and crappy out. Making time for fun, I think, is an essential part of the conversation. And I think it gets lost sometimes in grit and hustle and grind and all of those things.
Those moments of quote unquote fun or downtime, right? Doing something other than the grind that is moving us forward, or what we think is moving us forward, actually has the effect, in my opinion, to propel us faster. If we can find those moments to take that clarity break, that self-reflection, that time with our friends, that just time to settle the brain, allow the brain to focus on other things that are important in our life, our family, our friends. I believe that it has the ability to propel us faster towards our goals.
Making space for those things, I think, is super important. And I think those are the things that land us kind of in that good zone. Like you were talking earlier about wrenching on a bike and spending some time with friends working on a bike. There, like, I've got examples of that over here. Like, just you go hiking with somebody, or you're doing something with somebody that you enjoy doing it with other people that you enjoy being with. That has the ability to put us in a zone that's a really good zone, to get that clarity, to think about who we are, what we enjoy, where we want to go, and to do it with other people. God, those are cool moments, man. I think, but you have to make time for it in the middle of all the hustle and grind and all the other crap.
Yeah, dude, laughter's medicine, man. It, like, I don't know what the scientific behind that is, right? What the science is behind it. If it's the endorphins or what it is, right? When you were in those situations, but it just makes us feel good. And laughing and having a good time and working towards common goals, and more importantly, helping friends. It's rewarding, right? And it helps us to step back and prioritize things. Right? Those moments of help, those moments of laughter, for me, help me say, this is what life is about. This is what life should be. Like, we can't get wrapped up in the 9 to 5, 9 to 8, whatever it is that a day is for us, right? We can't just get wrapped up in just that. There has to be time focused on us, focused on laughter, and focused on helping people.
That focus on helping people, there's a giant key in the middle of that. There's a lot of, and I see it all the time in business. Like, you can tell if somebody comes to the table and they're coming from a relational place or a transactional place. And you can tell, like, there's people that I've sat across from who see a dollar sign over my head. And there's people that I've sat across from who see a relationship and networking and community when they meet me. And you can feel it. A lot of times it comes across in conversation. It comes across in how they talk to you, what those interactions are like, what kind of follow-ups you get. So I'm going to spin on this for a second. One of the things that's important about that is making people feel important and significant. And I don't think I talked about this on the last episode, but I had a guy who I've gotten to be friends with. He writes a blog. And I noticed over the last handful of months that he started writing more blog posts, and they're really good. I've been reading them and I really like them. And so I dropped him a note and I said, hey, I just want to let you know, I see this and it's really good. And I'm really excited for you. This is awesome. And he sent me a message back and it was a thank you message. Hey, I appreciate the message. Thanks for reaching out. And then a couple of days later, he sent another message and he said, hey, I just want to say this, and it's really uncomfortable for me to say this, but a handful of months ago, I reached out to you and I wanted to ask you some questions about your own blog. And I sent a message and I never heard back. And then I sent another message and I didn't hear back. And it just made me feel kind of insignificant, like I didn't matter. And I know you're at a spot where you'd want to hear that. And I just wanted to let you know. And it was like, reading that at first was super jarring. Like, and I know it was uncomfortable for him to say, but it was like, it was jarring for me to hear that. And then when I took a step back and I listened to it, I don't ever want to make somebody feel insignificant. Like, in our relationships, we have the opportunity to make somebody feel like they're important and they matter, or insignificant and they don't. And we're all busy and we all, like, emails slip through the cracks and all that stuff. I get it. There's a million excuses, but we have the opportunity to make the people in our circle feel like they matter. And to do that and to give them that is a big deal. And you can't underestimate the impact you have on somebody when you respond or you reach out or,
Yeah. So how do you go about that? Ensuring that you're not things falling through the cracks, like in those situations. Clearly something fell through the cracks on that. It wasn't, I would assume it wasn't intentional that you didn't respond. It just happens, right? It goes back to the same conversation we were having earlier about business, right? There's so much stuff in business and in our personal lives that can be just cured with communication. Right? As long as communication is happening, it doesn't even have to be what you want to hear necessarily, as long as the person on the other end feels heard. That makes sense?
Making people feel heard. Like, think about that through your own lens as you're listening to this right now. Do you want to feel heard? Do you want to feel recognized? Do you want to feel seen? Like, every single one of us, you and I, everyone who's listening to this right now, we all want those same things. We want to feel like we matter and like that somebody recognizes that we exist. Like, that at a very basic need, that's pretty important. And we have the ability to do that for other people. Your question about how do you keep things from falling through the cracks? On the email side, that I'll use email because that's where this happened, was email. And I think that's like one of the big dragons we all battle all the time. I think you have to be really intentional about it. You have to set time aside to go through emails. You have to protect that time, like, pretty aggressively, so that, like, we all know people who communicate well. They text well, they email well, they return phone calls well. And then we know people who don't do it as well. And I probably personally fall a little bit on the other side where I don't do it as well. A work in progress, right? And you're you're laughing when you hear that. And I get it. It's work in progress. And that's the point. Like I can know that about myself and I can say, well, I'm just not good at it. Or I can know that about myself and say, I'm going to bust my ass and work on it.
That is the point, right? As long as we're working on it, right? Nobody's perfect, right? But we need to at least recognize it and work towards that. You know, I did see a quote, kind of stepping back a second. I did see a quote this week, unknown quote, but the only people who deserve to be in my life are the ones who treat me with love, kindness, and total respect. It's kind of like what we're talking about here, right? Being heard. I want to feel that. I want to feel that love. I want somebody to recognize and see the work that we're doing, right? I want to be that person that recognizes that in other people. And that there is a mutual respect that happens there. Those are the folks that deserve to be in our lives. Now, communication and responding can help elevate in those areas, right? Because then the other person is feeling that just through communication, they're feeling heard. They're feeling like, oh yeah, that person does care. Oh, they do have some respect. Even if it is just a quick, hey, I saw your note. I don't have time to respond to it today in earnest, but I will get back to you. Right. The unfortunate part of the world we live in today is that we live in this immediate, like everybody wants instant gratification, right? When somebody texts you, they expect you to text back immediately. When somebody emails you, they almost expect you to email back immediately. When somebody calls you, they expect a phone call back right away. Guess what? That's just not reality. And if we're practicing protection of our time, like those are not things that become super important, right? Like I don't live with my responding to my email immediately upon reception of those all day long. I get blocks in my day where I kind of respond to emails I kind of bucket them. Like I just want to knock out a bunch of responses, right? I don't want to go onesie twosies because I have other priorities and things that I'm working on in the day. It kind of is a little bit the same with the text, although, you know, that becomes a little more apparent because that little black thing sitting next to you is annoying the hell out of you, you know, as it continues to buzz and ring. But so there's two things at play, right? We're trying to protect our own time, but we're trying to make sure that folks are heard. So how do we bridge that?
I think what you said is the key to it. I think you bucket time, and you know if you value. Here's one of the things that's come up for me a lot lately. Of all the things that I would say that I value, like here's the things I value. If I say I value communication, show me the proof. There should be evidence. If I took you to court and I tried to charge you on being a good communicator, would I find evidence that that's actually true? Because I think there's things we say we value, and then when push comes to shove and we look for the evidence, we realize like there's not a lot of evidence of it. Maybe I don't value it as much as I thought. So if I say I value communication, then there should be some evidence of how I spend my time, how I spend my energy that points to the fact that, yeah, I value it enough to do this a little bit different. At noon every day, I go through my emails because I value that. Whatever your system or your practice is, it doesn't matter, but there should be some evidence of it. If I say I value health and fitness and I don't ever go to the gym or hop on a bike or run or whatever your deal is, then maybe you don't value it as much as you say. And you could apply that to everything in our lives. You should have some evidence in your life that the things you say matter actually do.
And if those truly are qualities that you want in your life, then put in the work to make it a reality. Right? But sit down and I think to your point, John, like have some self-reflection. And where do we find the time to do that self-reflection? that's those times where we step away, right? That clarity break, as it may be called by some people. Just self-reflection time. It's, maybe you're going for a walk by yourself. Maybe it's your time in the gym and you have that time to get in your head and think about things. Maybe it's the time when you're hanging out with your friends and really thinking about what it is that's important. When we peel it all back and we're having some quote unquote fun in our lives, the things that truly matter bubble to the top.
Go ahead.
But we have to be aware. Like, we have to be cognizant of those things when they happen. Right? We have to have that ability when they bubble up to go, yep, I got to write that down, or I got to remember that because that's important to me.
There was a night, and we started doing this like a month ago. So blended family can be challenging, all the stuff that goes along with that, right? And so we finally started doing like family meetings where we're gonna, like, on a Monday night, spend 10 minutes. It's not a giant chunk of time, but we're gonna do a check-in. How's everybody doing? What's on your plate this week? What's a big deal to you? What can we be thinking about for each other, praying for maybe? And what does that look like? And I had one of those moments last week where I've got Christina and I've got my kids in the same room. Everybody's hanging out, and everybody was like engaged and having fun during this family meeting, which I thought for a long time, I'm like, family meetings, I have like 8,000 meetings a week. I don't want another meeting. But it was fun to sit in that moment and see everybody in my house communicating and just engaged with each other in a really healthy, positive way. That was one of those moments where I stepped back and I'm like, okay, that's what I want. That's what's valuable to me. That's important to me. That feels good. And to step back and notice it in the moment, and then even the next day to reflect on it a little bit and say, okay, I want more of that. That felt really good.
Right. And that was important. And then also thinking about, well, what drove that? Why was it so great? How do I duplicate that?
Knowing what you want more of in life and what you want less of, and starting to define what falls to the right and to the left of that line. Like, if you want more of it, know what it is you want more of so you can start working toward it. And if you want less of it, know what that is too.
Yep, for sure. You should really say that again, because that's important.
I mean, it is like knowing what you really want and knowing what you don't want, and defining both of those, getting sharp on what falls into which category, and naming those things is what's going to allow you to have more of what you want and less of what you don't. I don't think we spend enough time on that. We live life on cruise control, and we get what we get. There used to be a line: you get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
Sure.
That's a dumb line. Like, I used to use that on my kids. Like, if they didn't like their dinner at whatever, they didn't like the chicken nuggets when they were little. We're a little older now. We don't have to live on chicken nuggets. We get to make some, and chicken nuggets are still pretty good, but we get to make some decisions about what we want and how we're going to make that happen. But you have to take the time again to have the clarity to figure it out.
Which is only one component. It's the first component. We got to figure it out, but then we got to take action on it. Because unless we take action, it's just a dream. It's no different with any of our other goals, right? And my vision board or anything else that I have. If I don't take the action to move towards those things, they're just a dream. And that's what separates. That's what separates us, is the action. It's taking action, not being afraid to fail. So what? Like, I failed at a million things. I mean, it's probably an exaggerated number, but I failed at hundreds of things in my life. And I'll fail at hundreds more. And I'm okay with that because at least I'm taking action.
I'll take the failures over the successes. Like, we all love the successes, and I'm not going to like lie and say that I don't. Like, when something goes really well, totally dig it.
For sure.
If I rewind though, the places where I've learned the most and grown the most, you can't have a podcast called Grit Meets Growth and talk about growth if you're not going to talk about failure, because the places I've grown the most are in those failures, like you've talked about, hundreds of them, millions of them, whatever your number is. We've all got them. There's a lot of solid lessons to be learned in that, that are, if we allow them to be, are really valuable.
Well, as long as, let's take it back to what we're talking about here again, right? Having those failures and just letting them go while being on cruise control doesn't add a lot of value. The value of those failures comes when you can reflect upon them and understand what went wrong and what went right in that failure. And make what went right the next time be more than the what went wrong.
100%.
That's the value. That's the value. That's where that reflection comes into the utmost importance. Like, if I don't think about my failures, have I really learned anything from them?
It's one thing to dust yourself off, get back up fast and keep going, which I think is great. But to your point, you have to at some point slow down enough to think back and reflect. The time we spend reflecting and giving ourselves opportunity to do that is where the value of the failure comes from. Mm-hmm. Dusting yourself off and getting back up. Like, I used to do that when I was a kid. Like, I'd wipe out on my bike and I was up off the ground as fast as I could be, but I was more afraid that somebody had seen me and I didn't want to be embarrassed.
I think, like you said, it's important to get back up. Like, we have to get back up. Like, that is the first step from the failure. You have to pick yourself up, dust yourself off. There's no doubt about it. That's where the real true grit comes from, is the ability to do that. But once we get up, like, we've got to think about what caused us to fall.
Rather than
Guess what? I might do it again. And if I don't reflect upon it and figure out what caused that, I'll do it again and again and again. The same thing will happen unless I change a component of it. Nobody wants to go on continuing to fail. Sometimes it takes it 2 or 3 times. But eventually we have to figure it out. We're not wired to be failures as human beings. We're wired to win.
I think one of the things, as I look ahead to the next couple of weeks, one of the things that sticks out for me is, there's a couple of things. It's making time for the fun and noticing when you're in the middle of the fun. It's like we just talked about, understanding what it is that you want and what it is that you don't, and getting clear on that. And I think it's finding opportunities to serve other people and make them feel heard and seen and important. Those are all things over the next couple of weeks that hit for me, and that would be relatively easy to do if I'm intentional about them. That's the key.
Yep. And I would add on to that reflection is key. Think about your successes and failures over the last week, and changes that you can make. And don't forget to go have some fun. Like, spring is coming, right? Easter is always the, kind of that calendar change into spring in our minds. Here in the upper Midwest, the weather's going to be changing over the course of the next 10 days. There's some pretty warm weather in there, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. They'll get rid of the rest of the snow that's hanging around. And just get excited about that. Think about what the next 3 quarters of this year are going to be. What are you going to do? What are you going to do over the next 90 days to make yourself better than you are today? That's my challenge.
You know what I'm going to do to make it fun?
What's that?
Because you brought up Easter. I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to hide Easter eggs all around outside your house.
Bring it.
Right on, man. What do you want me to fill them with?
$100 bills.
Right on, dude. Always good, man. Always good.
Always. How do we wrap this up? Make it a great day and get after it.
See you later, man.
See ya.
That wraps it up for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being part of the Grit Meets Growth tribe. And thanks for growing along with us and being part of this journey together. If you know someone who needs to hear the conversation we had today, please share it. If you got something out of this conversation, please leave us a review. And finally, if you want to make sure you don't miss future episodes, just remember to subscribe. We're thankful for each and every one of you. And as my co-host and good friend Chris Cathers always says, make it a great day.